I'd ask everybody to mute their microphone unless they are speaking, please, so we don't get feedback. Please mute your microphones, please. We're going to call the meeting to order. Begin with a pledge to the flag, followed by a moment of silence, please. If you're located, please stand and participate in the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
liberty and
justice for all. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. Roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. Griffith,
present.
Mr. Haas,
Here.
Ms. House,
here,
Ms. McDermott,
Present.
Mr. Perry,
Here.
Ms. Radel,
Here.
Ms. Sedman,
Here.
Mr. Schnee, Mr. Schnee, Mr. Urban,
Hello.
Here.
Mr. Vogt,
Here.
All right. I'll have Jared contact you. Okay. All right. Jared, would you please call Mr. Snee?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Ms.
Mr.
Lawrence?
McGinley is present, so we have 10 of
present.
11 right now.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a motion to adopt the special meeting agenda?
so moved, Linda.
Ms. House, do we have a second?
Second, Kendra.
Ms. Radel, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition?
No.
Speak up, please. Who was that?
Urban.
Mr. Urban? Thank you. Any abstentions? Motion carries. We have a motion to suspend the bylaws regarding the requirement. Majority of those participating in the meeting must be physically present at the meeting. Ms. Howe, you make that motion?
So moved.
Thank you. You have a second?
Sheila.
Vote.
I think Matt got in there first.
Okay.
Mr. Snee, you're on now? Mr. Snee?
Present.
Okay, thank you. All in favor of the motion to suspend the bylaws indicate by saying aye.
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 Any in opposition? Any abstentions? None heard. Motion carries. Motion to suspend the bylaws regarding the conduct of public meetings to the extent that the current format is inconsistent with the term of the state's emergency declaration. We have a motion.
So moved, Sheila.
Ms. Saban, do we have a second for Ms. Saban?
Chris.
Ms. Radel, I think got in there that time. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition?
No, Walter.
Mr. Griffith? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We're going down to the commentary regarding the executive session that was held last week after our work session. Mr. DeLuca?
I'm sorry.
No problem.
An executive session was held last week after the regular meeting to discuss the litigation. And hold on one second. I'm sorry, I wasn't ready to jump on that.
Javits versus Luzerne County, which is
Javits
pending in
versus-
the middle,
yes.
in the middle district of Pennsylvania, federal court.
The executive session was approximately 25 minutes, and council received a report from the Office of Law.
Okay. Thank you. We're now down to public comment on agenda items. It appears that we have a large number of people who would like to participate, so excuse me 1 second, and then Mr. Knapp will recognize you. We're going to stay with the 3-minute time limit, please, so everybody will have an opportunity. Mr. Knapp, you have the floor first.
Thank you, Chairman McGinley, for listening in
what my opinion is, and also the council members present. Based on what I have followed in the newspaper and based on what I have read in the charter, what has transpired is a violation of the charter. As a candidate who is running for Luzerne County Council, prospective, I would not tolerate anyone who violates the charter. Processes are in place to follow. If a council member does not like something about the charter, you suggest it be placed on the ballot, or you fix it legislatively, which is the duty of the council member through the legislative process. I'm not here to confuse anyone. Nearly a month ago, I, along with Councilman Griffith, suggested the need to place Manager Pedre on the board to improve the process. The communication lines are open and to make sure processes are followed correctly. This suggestion was voted down. We as citizens deserve better, not to mention prospective candidates who are running for office in the municipal election on May 18th. We wonder why there is no one interested in being a part of the board. No one is showing interest in this, especially important part of our democracy. It is based on how this is being handled. Who in their right mind would want to be thrown into the lion's den, and especially at this juncture? We as citizens of Luzerne County deserve better, not to mention prospective candidates running for office come May 18th. Please, let us come to a pass here and get right what is wrong before the important dates are upon us. After all, this is what you are paid to do. Please enact accordingly. Thank you for listening to my suggestions.
Other members of the public, please.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Mr. Rabo, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be succinct. In the case of the state election law regarding the composition of the county election code under Title 25, Section 2141B, within the second sentence, it states that, quote, in counties which have adopted home rule charters or optional plans, the Board of Elections shall consist of members of the county body which performs legislative functions unless, and this is where the part I believe that the 3 election board members failed to realize, and the solicitor was admonishing them, unless the county charter or optional plan provides for the appointment of the Board of Elections, unquote. Which makes it clear that the state election code gives the counties an option as to have a board of county legislative members, or a composition as long as there's a minority representation on the county election board, as stated in the next sentence, quote, in either case, there shall be minority representation on the board, unquote. In the case of the 2 election board members, Ms. Dombrowski-Gephardt and Mr. Gould, I would like to ask the solicitors, county solicitors, when did they
comment on the agenda, please, Mr. Rabo?
Yeah, I am. They're being there's a removal, isn't there, for 3 resolutions to remove, isn't there? That's what I'm
asking. You're not asking the solicitors. Just
okay.
comment on
Well,
the agenda.
all right. Well, when did Ms. Gephardt? I'll pose it as a general question. When did Ms. Dombrowski-Gephardt and Mr. Gould cease to be officially recognized by the county as election board members? Also, where is an official act rendering decisions to punishing accused individuals? Are they denied their 5th Amendment due process rights and 14th Amendment equal protection under the law rights? I ask the council members to tread very carefully moving forward with this political inquisition under the guise of a special meeting. Even if the council member Urban is perceived as guilty, there's no justifiable excuse to deprive the other 2 election board members accused of due process and their right to a fair and impartial hearing. In conclusion, whenever there are wrongdoings by council members, board members, and even any other member of the county officials, let there be no double standard, as 2 wrongs don't make a right. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the public?
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a message to share on behalf of a resident. if that's all right.
Well, Mr. Haas, let's see if there's somebody who's currently on the meeting with us, then certainly we can add that to the,
Sure.
please.
Sure, let me know.
Okay.
Brian Shiner.
Go ahead, Mr. Shiner.
I'm very pleased that council is outraged over a perceived violation of our charter. I just wish that you were always this outraged over perceived violations of our charter, because most of the time you just let them go. I was also glad to see that some members of council feel that the charter is clear language and that they do understand the intent and goals of our charter. But it still doesn't show how this council has behaved over the 9+ years, and especially over the past few, where you've had 9 opportunities to put questions on the ballot, to modify and change the charter, to bring it in accordance with state law as it's supposed to be, and to make improvements where we've seen things just don't work. I do have to ask, who authorized someone to send a sheriff out on Friday to these 3 individuals and serve them with papers? I don't remember any council meeting and a vote on that. I also ask why they were refused counsel for a meeting they wished to hold. I also have to ask why no ad was placed for them when they requested a meeting. Who scheduled or who ran the advertisement for the applications to be taken for county chair? And also, who scheduled a meeting for the March 10th to go over these applications if there's no board? So if you want to talk about violations of charter, violations of law itself, I think you have to start looking a little more carefully. And to say that they knowingly or willfully violated our charter, that's a rough one. And I don't think anyone here is capable of determining that. I think that needs to go to court. Thank you.
Other members of the public, please.
Brian Dwyer from Larksville.
Mr. Dwyer, go ahead.
Thank you. Yes. I had some things I wanted to say, but Mr. Rabo and Mr. Shiner basically have covered most of what I wanted to say, and I think they did it quite succinctly. If you guys are outraged about what happened, that's okay, and I'm fine with that. But that standard needs to be applied to everything across the board. And it needs to be held in court with all the rules of court. You know, not the council can't make a motion, but, you know, if you're going to follow the law, you got to follow all the law. It's just that simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Hello, this is Denise Williams.
Ms. Williams, go ahead.
Hello, Chairman McGinley. I had sent in an email, but I don't see it posted online, so I'll read it.
Go ahead.
What it is, what I started with is that I'm gravely concerned about the hijacking of our county board of election by rogue players. I have questions about how this played out. It appears that it was pre-planned. I would ask who was involved with the pre-planning, and pre-planning would be a violation of the Sunshine Law, no? The website information about that board of election meeting and the links for online access was no longer available that evening in the spot where it had been for previous meetings. It was very difficult to find the link for the access, and I'm wondering who changed it from where it was. Why was it changed? It seems suspect to me. There were only 2 citizen phone call comments that evening, which was very unusual. Walter Griffith was also present for this board of election meeting, and remained silent when this violation of the county charter was taking place. He, like Steve Urban, took an oath to uphold the charter when they were sworn in as council members. Why did he not speak out for the citizens of Luzerne County? Why did he allow it to happen? Maybe he helped orchestrate and plan this? Mr. Griffith's silence and Mr. Urban's actions are not only violations of the county charter, but they are also violations of the code of ethics. One other grave concern I have is that after Mr. Urban was appointed during the sham of a meeting Joyce Gebhardt Dombrowski made a motion to request a private room at the Bureau of Election for 2 members of the Board of Election to have access to a computer with the Sure system. This went to a vote and they passed it. Keith Gould then stated that they needed to have access right away and to contact the county manager for that access. I have serious election concerns about any of these 3, Gould, Dombrowski, Gebhardt, and Urban, having access to our county's Sure system. And lastly, Andrea Hill, the acting director of the Bureau of Elections, was present for this meeting. She was seated in an office at a desk with Joyce Dombrowski. Gebhardt, Joyce made a statement during the meeting that going forward, everyone would be cooperating. This was in reference to working with the Bureau members and council members. She also mentioned that Andrea had helped her post the amended Board of Election minutes to the website. Has Ms. Hill granted private access to the Sure system to Gould, Urban, or Griffith, Dombrowski, Gebhardt already? That would be one of my questions, and I hope that hasn't happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the public?
Mr. McGinley, can I respond to Ms. Williams's comment about me?
Not until we get through the public, then certainly you can, Mr.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Other members of the public, please?
Elaine Curry.
Go ahead, Ms. Curry.
I wrote a letter to all of you, and I'd like to just quickly read it so that everyone knows what I had written. As a former member of County Council, I strongly support the resolution that would declare vacant the 2 Republican election board member seats and the appointment of Stephen J. Urban as chair of the election board. In 2010, as a result of the corruption that plagued the county, the people of Luzerne County passed the Home Rule Charter. The charter was designated specifically to prevent the kind of blatant conflict of interest that we witnessed when Dombrowski, Gebhardt, and Gould appointed Stephen J. Urban as chair of the election board while he still served as a member of County Council. By making that appointment over the objection of the county solicitor, Dombrowski, Gebhardt, and Gould willfully and knowingly violated sections of the charter, and both need to be removed from the election board immediately. Just as clearly, Stephen J. Urban knowingly and willfully violated his oath of office, pledging to uphold the Luzerne County Charter, and as such, I believe the proper thing would be for Mr. Urban to resign from County Council. I cannot recall any other time that a member of the Luzerne County Council has so publicly violated their oath of office as Mr. Urban has with this openly brazen act. As long as our local public officials continue to act in bad faith, Luzerne County will be unable to reverse its reputation of being a hotbed of corruption. Sincerely, Elaine Madden Curry.
Thank you. Other members of the public? Mr. Haas, you have an email or from someone?
I do, Mr. Chair, and
Go
I
ahead.
just forwarded to Ms. Lawrence for your records too, Sharon, so it'll be there, but it's from Maderno Butch Rossi out of Lehman Township. And just let me get that, and I will gladly share that. Bear with me. Okay, Mr. Ross's comment is, can you check when they put the election meeting and what, and was put in the paper if it said a voting meeting? And I believe he's talking about the one where Mr. Urban was appointed chair. Also, did they make a motion to name the temporary president? To the 3 of them planning for the last 10 days to take over the election board is a shameful political power move. All 3 should be removed from the board. The board members should face removal. Stop the political poison at the election department. Please send text to all your county council members. Thank you. And I told Mr. Ross I would share this at the public meeting. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Griffith, you wanted to reply?
Yes. I just want to make a statement regarding Ms. Williams's comment about my participation in what transpired at the Board of Elections meeting. There's a quote that that goes like this: "It's better for a fool to remain silent than to open their mouth and remove all doubt. The problem I have
Not in
here
a
is-
democracy.
the problem.
Whoa, wait, Mr. Griffith
Excuse
has the
me.
podium, please. Go
Excuse
ahead.
me. The problem that I have is I was not at that meeting. I was there for public comment and council comment only. I went into a first district meeting to get a petition signing done. I had no idea what happened after I left that meeting. I had no idea it was going to transpire. I did not speak to Mr. Urban prior to him having this meeting. I did not speak to Ms. Dombrowski prior to having this meeting. I did not speak to Mr. Keith Gould before having this meeting. So her statement that says that I was part of this ability to put Mr. Urban in his chair cannot be further from the truth. I am somebody who has always fought against this charter, constantly, since it's been incepted. I was on the study commission. I was one of the drafters of this charter, and I will fight to the death for this charter. Contrary to what Ms. Williams believes or understands, that is what I'm about. And if she thinks anything other than that, I feel very sorry for that. But unfortunately, I will tell you, Mr. McGinley, that everybody who knows what Mr. Griffith stands for in this county knows that I fought for this charter and will continue to fight for this charter. I will not tolerate people that violate the charter in any fashion, in any way. I'm the only one who brings ordinances to this council to change the charter in areas that I feel is inefficient. I haven't seen anybody bring an ordinance to this council ever in the 9 years it's been there, other than the one for the authorities, boards, and commission that was changed. So let's look at the record before we open our mouth and say that Walter Griffith is one who was involved in this whole issue with trying to circumvent the charter, because that could not be further from the truth. And if Ms. Williams doesn't understand that, there's not much I can say about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
There are several emails that were received by council and have been posted on the webpage. I'm going to read several of them. Ann Aston from Kingston Township. I believe the two members who voted to elect a new chairman who was not eligible for office should be taken off the board. Such a power grab should not be sanctioned. Thank you. Karen Atanasio from Jackson Township. I'm in total support of the 3 Board of Election seats being vacated. If Luzerne County Council proposes to be the voice of Luzerne County, let's start with basic morals and the following of the charter rules. All 3 have violated the charter and action must be taken. Ms. Becky Elfman from Kingston. Urban's appointment to the election board violates the Home Rule Charter. This is a public and bipartisan recognized fact. Don't waste public money paying for both sides of the court case that if justice is done, will only postpone his removal and that of the 2 other election board members who decided they were above the charter and appointed them anyway. Just vacate their seats. Home rule isn't a petty technicality to enforce. It's vital to curtail corruption. Thank you. We also have one from Thomas Ricketts, I believe. Do not allow anyone to ignore the rules of charter. Mr. Urban and those who voted for on his appointment should be removed. This partisan attempt to control the Board of Elections is unacceptable. Rosalie Ricketts, and she's from Trucksville. And the last one that we received was from Mr. Palancar. The allegation of the charter violation against Councilman Urban as a Board of Elections chair is on the agenda tonight. The year 2021 is only 2 months old, and for the sake of public interest and also the economy of council's time, this meeting should deal with all fresh allegations or evidence of council members engaged in any activity, especially remunerated activity, in violation of either or both the county charter or Pennsylvania code, which other council members are alleged to be or documented as violating either since the beginning of 2021. We're moving down now to under new business.
Mr. McGinley, if I could just point out to you, if you wouldn't mind, I see in our teams, we have people that raise their hand, and I don't know if they wanted to speak and they might not have had a chance. That Claudia Glennon has her hand raised. Do you see that on your screen or no?
Well, my screen is full of names and icons.
All right, I just wanted to let you know in case they wanted to speak and didn't have.
Well, I thought we gave everybody an opportunity, but certainly if there's somebody from the public. who would like to speak?
Yes, this is
Okay.
Claudia Glennon. I'm from
Okay.
Salem Township.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Can you
can.
hear me? Okay. I'm from Salem Township. And in addition to the other things that have been said, I also objected to the change in meetings from being virtual to in-person. According to the county website, it said that all meetings for board and committees would be virtual. I would like at some point the council to propose that discontinue even after COVID. I'm what I call one of the lost children of Luzerne County, being down here right 20 feet from Columbia County.
Hello, Matt.
And this has given me an option to participate in local government that I wouldn't have if I had to drive 45 minutes to a meeting. So even beyond COVID, I wish meetings would stay virtual so we all have a chance to participate. Thank you.
Okay. There's one hand raised and next to it says guest. So I don't know who that might be.
And Mark Schaefer.
Yeah, I see Mark Schaefer, but the one above him says guest.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Well, Mr. Schaefer, your hand is raised, so you have a comment? You have to unmute yourself, Mr. Schaefer.
Can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just wanted to speak in support of removing both Mr. Urban and the two other members of the Board of Elections. It's pretty blatantly a violation of the charter, and Mr. Urban's claim that it violates with state law is kind of laughable on its surface. His justification is that if you don't allow elected officials and you don't allow county employees, apparently he thinks there'll be no one who knows how election works to appoint to the job. And I can tell you there are plenty of people who volunteer on campaigns, have run for office 6 years ago, so outside of the time frame, and all kinds of people who could easily serve on the board. So I think we shouldn't waste our time going to court about this, as other people have pointed out. And especially since we know that any judge would dismiss Mr. Urban's claim immediately because it's so facile. I think that the other two members should be removed as well because, as others have pointed out, basic part of being on the board is you swear to uphold the charter, and this is so obviously against the charter. This is like if there was I assume there's a law saying you can't take $1,000 gift. If you took $1,000 gift and then said, "Oh no, I didn't violate the charter," I don't think you need to worry about going through some long, lengthy process when it's so clearly against the wording of the charter. And I think Mr. Urban's claim that state law protects him is pretty silly, frankly. So I hope you'll remove him and the other two and allow other people in the county. There are plenty available who can serve in those roles.
Okay, thank you. I still see that one person has guessed, but I don't know who it is. So last time, if there's someone who would like to speak, please speak up now.
Hello, it's Lisa Napersky. Can you hear me?
Okay, Lisa, what's your last name, please?
It's Napersky, N-A-P-E-R-S-K-Y.
And where do you reside, Ms. Napersky?
I'm in Fairview Township.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks for letting me speak, and I'll be quick. I just want to echo what Mark just said, and also Elaine and some of the others about the hijacking of the election board, how concerned that I am, and pretty much everyone I know is very irate about this. And thank you, council, for taking this matter up. And it's clearly a blatant conflict of interest. And thank you for having this meeting and taking action.
Thank you. Okay, I hope everybody had an opportunity, but moving down into new business, we have a statement from the Office of Law. Mr. DeLuca.
Yes, I wanted to give the Office of Law actually wanted to give basically a brief statement. This is the first time that I'm aware under home rule that we have that council has considered these types of resolutions. Certainly going forward, I know I've had conversations with a number of different council members who suggested maybe some discussions regarding codifying a process in the administrative code. That being said, tonight on the agenda, council will be considering 3 resolutions to declare vacancies on the Luzerne County Board of Elections. Obviously, the result of that will be that 3 members who sit there will be removed. This is not an impeachment trial. This is not a trial by any stretch. It's not a hearing. We, at the Office of Law, had, because there was no specific process that had been outlined at this point by the charter or by the administrative code, we had met, the Office of Law met a number of times, determined what due process would be due, made a determination as to how to execute that. And what we did is once council had decided to schedule a special meeting to consider these motions to vacate those positions, we made sure that the individual board members were notified. They were served with a copy of a notice that indicated to them that tonight would be the night for council to consider removing them from their appointed positions, that they would be given an opportunity tonight to be heard, and so that's why we're here this evening. As far as a summary of the facts are pretty simple. I know that the chief solicitor had sent out a copy of the transcript of the hearing that took place, or the meeting that took place on February 24th, a meeting of the election board. At that meeting, the chief solicitor had advised members Gould and Dombrowski-Gephardt that they could not vote to appoint a sitting Luzerne County Council member to be chairperson of the Board of Elections. They clearly ignored it and did it anyway. And then, of course, Council Member Urban accepted that election or appointment as chairperson. And all of those actions are the reason we're here tonight. They're clear violations of the Luzerne County Charter, the Administrative Code, the Accountability, Conduct, and Ethics Code, as well as each of their respective oaths of office. Council is authorized to act in this case, specifically at this meeting tonight, pursuant to a number of provisions of the Charter. I'm not going to get into every single violation that these facts support, but I will, just to give council an idea as to the legality of what is being considered tonight. Under section 8.02E of the charter, it indicates that, and this is regarding authorities, boards, and commissions, it indicates that positions on any county board or commission shall become vacant when the member knowingly or willfully violates any provision of this charter. 804 regarding Board of Elections and Registration authorizes, 804E authorizes council to act when a position is vacant. And that's pursuant to 11.06 of the charter, which deals with declaration of a vacancy. And that section says whenever facts or circumstances result in a vacancy as defined in this charter on any county board, county council at its next regular scheduled or special meeting shall declare such office vacant by resolution adopted by affirmative vote of at least a majority of its members. What are the specific violations of the charter? Section 2.04 of the charter says that during his or her term of office, no member of county council shall serve as a member of any county authority, board, or commission, except as may be provided for in this charter or applicable law. Specifically in this case, though, Section 804H clearly states, at the time of his or her appointment, throughout the term of his or her term of office, and for a period of at least 4 years prior to appointment, no member of the Board of Elections and Registration shall be or have been an elective county official. We know Mr. Urban is an elective county official. He was appointed chairperson of the Board of Elections by members Gould and Dombrowski Gebhardt, and he accepted that appointment. Please know, this is not a close call. This is not a gray area. We have discussions all the time, and I know Ramilda and I, as well as Shannon, when she was in this seat, have said many times that this is a novel form of government. This is a challenging engagement at times because this charter does not have the benefit of years and years of what they call stare decisis or case law in order to assist us with interpretation of the charter provisions. Again, this is not gray. This is not subject to interpretation by one or the other. We're very lucky in this circumstance, and this is a rare pleasure for me, I could tell you, to be able to tell you unequivocally that there is no room for argument. In this case, Section 2641 of the Pennsylvania Election Code specifically authorizes the charters of home rule counties to determine the makeup of an election board. So if you hear tonight quotes to Pennsylvania Constitution, the election, other provisions of the election code, home rule law, whatever, there is a specific provision that deals with this circumstance precisely. There are instances, and we've dealt with them over many years, since 2012, there are instances where interpretation of the charter versus Pennsylvania state law is challenging. There are instances where we have to discuss terms like preemption, and we have to discuss terms like whether or not the charter is in conflict with Pennsylvania state law. This is not one of them. So tonight, after this now, we had set aside the next opportunity for those three members, if they choose, Mr. Urban, Ms. Dombrowski Gebhardt, and Mr. Gould, if they choose to provide comment based on what the allegations are regarding the reasons to support vacating their position. They were offered the opportunity in the notice that was provided to them. If they didn't want to appear personally to speak before council, they could have submitted written comments. I don't believe, I didn't get any. I don't know if
There were
Mr.
none
Chair?
received here at the office.
Okay. That's it then. And now, Mr. Chair, if you would, you could call the members' names one by one if they choose to give a statement.
Thank you. Ms. Dombrowski Gebhardt. Ms. Dombrowski Gebhardt, are you with us?
We were getting some bad feedback, so it's *6 to unmute if you're on the phone.
Okay. Everyone, if you are on the phone, please use *6 if you have a lot of feedback. Ms. Gebhardt? I don't see. Ms. Gephardt's icon or name. If she comes on, we'll allow her time at that point. Mr. Gold, I do see your name on there. Would you like to speak at this time?
I would.
Go ahead, Mr. Gold. You got the
All
floor.
right. My first issue that I have, I'll start. Let me start. Mr. Urban was not appointed as any kind of a nefarious scheme to take over the Board of Elections. Our past two chairmen were of a different party. So there is no partisanship. We always worked together on this board. But at this time, I'd like to say, I feel like my civil rights and my right to due process are being violated. We asked and requested the Office of Law for representation, which the Board of Elections is afforded in the charter, and we were told no. So we are here facing the entire Office of Law, Luzerne County Council, with no representation. But the council has, I don't know how many attorneys with them, 4. This meeting should be postponed, or any votes or resolutions, until we're afforded our council. I'm an active sitting member of the Board of Elections. I'm not off the board, I'm an active member, and I'm afforded this through the charter. The Board of Elections gets an attorney, and we have not been given an attorney. I mean, there's a lot of, there's other, I'm assuming, council members on other boards, other commissions. There's people on boards that actually get money through life insurance, and we appointed a chairman, and you want to vacate our seats. There's people, that's the biggest violation of this charter, taking compensation to be on a board, and you want to remove the 3 of us from a board because of appointing a chairman. And we appointed a chairman who knew everything there was to know about elections. We had 2 past chairmen who knew nothing and didn't make it. Each one made it through 1 election. So the appointment of Mr. Urban was to benefit the citizens of Luzerne County. That's why we're on the board. That's why we spend all this time adjudicating for the board and for the citizens of Luzerne County. They're just, this meeting needs to be, or the vote at least needs to be postponed until we're provided adequate counsel. That's part of what we're allowed as a Board of Elections. That's all I have right now.
Thank you.
Mr. McGinley, if I could just answer that, because before the other 2 members speak, if that is a general theme, I may be able to save us some time. Individual board members are not granted the right to counsel under the charter or any other law for that matter. In this case, the Office of Law under the charter represents the Board of Elections. When we have individual members who are being removed, we have absolutely no obligation to represent any individual members, certainly not to represent individual members against the county. This team of lawyers that was just referred to had come up with the opinion that there was a violation occurring right before our eyes at the election board meeting and advised the members of that, and it was ignored. So this isn't a hearing. There's no civil rights issues here. The members could choose to participate in giving a statement, a public statement, if they choose. If they don't wish to, they don't have to. But this is not, there's no right to counsel, right to legal counsel for this matter. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gould again, why were not we provided with an attorney for our meeting for this past Monday that we called? We weren't, as the board, not as an individual member, but the Office of Law said we won't send an attorney to your meeting, and county management wouldn't advertise our meeting.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I can't speak for the county manager, but I can and am speaking for the Office of Law at this point. The meeting that was called by the Board of Elections was suspiciously called after county council had indicated that it was scheduling a special meeting to have board members removed. It was the position of the Office of Law that our appearance at a meeting involving members whose status was under question by county council would lend an air of credibility to whatever actions took place at that meeting. And I have to say, I appreciated and was in full agreement with the decision of the county executive branch of Dave Pedri to also not participate in that suspiciously scheduled meeting before council tonight decides on what the status is of the board. And if the council decides that the board is still valid, then of course, under the charter, the Office of Law would continue to participate in offering legal counsel.
Okay. Mr. Urban?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
So what I want to start off with is basically the charter is just one of the oaths that we take, but the Constitution of Pennsylvania, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, basically states we have to take an oath of office to uphold the United States Constitution and also the Constitution of Pennsylvania and all the laws that are all federal, state, and local. And quite honestly, when there's a conflict in the interpretation or opinion of the law, you know, as a legislative member, you have to weigh those options, just like a judge, in a sense. And when you weigh those options, you have to give it some credence in your mind, and you have to look at all angles of this. And quite honestly, I see the hypocrisy here on county council, even with one of our own members, holding an incompatible office under state statute and stating, you know, that they want to obey the law. However, that one person is sitting in an incompatible office as a public officer and a treasurer of a borough, which is under a specific title. And quite honestly, that hypocrisy is really great. It's under Title 16 PS Counties, Section 402, incompatible offices. Except as otherwise authorized by law, no elected county officer or county solicitor, if the county solicitor is an individual of a county of the 3rd through 8th class, Luzerne County, for all intent and purposes, is a 3rd-class county, at the same time serve as a treasurer or tax collector of any municipal corporation, and that means a borough is a corporation under state code. So, you know, I may have been chastised in the paper for breaking the county charter, but there we have one individual that's actually breaking state statute, which is even higher up than the charter itself. So the hypocrisy of holding an incompatible office is just tremendous from what I see. Now, getting back to the Board of Elections. Quite honestly, County Council was not the appointing entity. So I don't think they have legal standing to vacate my position. Quite honestly, I think that would require a quo warranto action, which would go to the DA or the Attorney General of the Commonwealth here. So either the local district attorney or the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to vacate that position. Quite honestly, nothing is nefarious about taking the position. It's not a paid position. It's a strictly voluntary position in a sense. It's about good government. And I've seen this county government go off the rails in many areas, and we violate law. And quite honestly, the Office of Law has allowed county council to violate the law twice in the purchase of election equipment. Twice. And unfortunately, even my own father voted on one of the issues when they purchased poll books. That power is actually expressly given to the Board of Elections, not the county manager because he is not on the Board of Elections, not county council because none of those council members and, you know, were on the Board of Elections at the time. There is the legislative process is once the board is comprised, they follow Title 25 for the conduct of elections. And county management is also very hypocritical, you know, in their ways. And the Office of Law allows them to run roughshod over the Board of Elections. Quite honestly, if you look at all of the, basically Article 3 of the powers, actually Article 3 of the Election Code and the powers and duties of the Board of Elections, you will see that they do have the right to retain counsel as a body, and the solicitor's office shall provide counsel as a body as a whole. You know, I mean, that's kind of in line with the charter. A quorum is 3 people. They took a majority vote. They appointed me. I accepted the position. The charter allows for the appointment of 4 members by county council and 1 member by the board. And, you know, it's in reverse. They were the appointing body. So I don't think council has a standing to actually remove me from that position. As far as, you know, the violations that the office of law allow, like I said, county council to kind of do their own thing with election equipment. That is a sole power of an election board to purchase equipment. They have a sole power to hire their own employees. Currently, none of those employees in that office have ever been conveyed power to the by the Board of Elections to actually touch any registration records. None of them have ever been conveyed power by the Board of Elections to buy anything. That office is running by fiat at this point in time, meaning that nobody in there, I mean, the last 2 people that were promoted were at one time under the old Board of Elections under Commissioner form of government. They were hired. So I would say they were grandfathered in when they had their old job title, but when they were changed to administrative assistant, all those people work for the county manager. They do not work for the Board of Elections. And the state law also says the registration commission, which is the Board of Elections, you know, when you change a record in the system, changing that record is acting on behalf of the Board of Elections, not the Bureau, not the department, not the county manager. When he bought those machines, the Dominion machines, he RFP'd those pieces of equipment, not the board. He usurped the power of the board at that time, took it upon himself and presented it to the county council, and county council voted on it. They actually broke the law themselves by voting on those issues because the board never approved those in a public forum. They didn't approve any of those machines in a public forum. They didn't approve any of the poll books from ESS in a public forum. Just because something's brought to council from management doesn't make it right, doesn't make it correct. There is a process and procedure all over this county that, you know, all the processes in that bureau are broken. Now, the admin code is created by ordinance. And because it's created by ordinance, it cannot enlarge or diminish basically the powers of the Title 25 election code. And that means the conduct of elections is solely rests in the power of the board. And quite honestly, because that power solely rests in the board, the management and actually county council, we all have to work together and working together to correct all those deficiencies. I mean, I got a document today which has a gold seal on it, Luzerne County seal, has Mary Beth Steininger's name on it as the clerk to the board, when nobody has ever voted in public to make her the clerk. No one. And now if you go back into the meeting minutes from 2013, when Mr. Packard was on the board, they actually took a vote and conveyed power to Marissa Crispell at the time. So, you know, there's been many missteps by that board, you know, and by the Office of Law they haven't given any good, solid legal advice to protect Luzerne County from any type of liability. And like I said, you know, as far as sure system access, none of us on the board at this point have any access, but that power is granted to the Board of Elections and Registrations by law, because you would work on people's voter registrations. If there's a challenge to a voter registration, currently none of those office employees can adjudicate that matter. And quite honestly, if you decimate this board tonight, you're going to decimate the petition process for next week, because people are afforded to challenge other people's signatures. If there's no quorum, you can't adjudicate signatures. And the only people that can do that are the Board of Elections. So, you know, you all need to learn some of the law. You need to learn the responsibility of the board. You have to know the lines of separation between county management, county council, and the Board of Elections. And, you know, I've immersed myself into this stuff quite extensively in the last couple of weeks. And it's not a power grab, but more so that, you know, you wouldn't believe all the restrictions that are in the charter. You have to be a member of your political party for 5 years before you can serve on the board. That means anybody from the ages of 18 to 23 minimum cannot serve. Age discrimination in some respects. If you switch your party, if everybody went out and switched their party tomorrow, nobody would be qualified in this county to serve on the Board of Elections. No one. You know, the restrictions on jobs, like you can't actually serve on the board if you're actually a contractor or a employee, or actually, I'm sorry, if you get off the board as a volunteer, unpaid person, you cannot take gainful employment in the county, any authority, board, or commission. You can't be you can't even be a contract employee that works for the county or for an authority, board, or commission. I don't know how you can actually restrict somebody from gainful employment in a private sector, you know, to allow them to work in the private sector. You know, you can't tell somebody that they can't go get a job that might, you know, somebody that might be working for county waste, if they want to become a garbage man or something like that. If you have a contract with the county, you can't work for county waste. Come on. So, you know, there's so many restrictions in there that it impedes actually the performance of that board. I think it's to reduce the power. It's a power grab by actually management, and they have no say in the election process. You know, I'd be quite interested in seeing actually notarized documents, because I know this stuff goes on. I've seen it before firsthand, where notarized documents, you know, or documents that are supposed to be notarized aren't witnessed by the notary public. Now, quite honestly, I think, you know, maybe somebody should go back and look at the notary's logbook to see if they personally know the person or if they've given them a copy of their driver's license, because I think whoever notarized that could be in some trouble as well. I mean, I was there a few years ago during a recount or during the counting process and witnessed that myself. So you want to talk about breaking process. I mean, one thing is about protecting the sanctity of our election system. And quite honestly, I don't think it's happening under County Manager Pedri. I don't think it's happening under the Office of Law. Quite honestly, I think everybody in the Office of Law should resign and go find another job, because, you know, they like to promote conflict, I think. Quite honestly, they have a professional standard that they can come in and they can at any time tell council, hey, you know, maybe this part of the charter isn't working. Let's fix it. You know, instead, they rather somebody go rogue. They rather chastise them when they do. But, you know, when it's advantageous to them, they don't say anything. Oh, you know, well, their paycheck comes from the county management side. So, you know, they're always going to protect their boss. You know, and quite honestly, it's a shame in this county that it's come to this. But quite honestly, you know, I did swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States. I've, you know, upholding the Constitution of Pennsylvania, and yes, you know, I mean, other people are breaking state statute right out of the gate. You know, so I think somebody needs to investigate one of my own colleagues for breaking state statute, taking a job in a borough, working as a treasurer title. Which is, I think, a bigger infraction than just simply wanting to help move Luzerne County forward, you know, in such a way that it protects our election process and, you know, at least teach people that they do have power when they're on these boards to actually get things done. You know, when the Office of Law doesn't even send the board members a copy of the election law, you know, until like January of this year, there's a problem in the county. There's no training process for any board members. They're flying by the seat of their pants, you know, and we put these people on there to be the eyes and ears of county council. And yes, it is an embarrassment when we find out things, but, you know, this was, yes, you could say that it occurred, but in my opinion, you know, it quite honestly, it's in a different light. There is Title 53. We'll be talking about that regarding the DA. I mean, as far as the charter itself, there's another scenario. We cannot vacate the DA's position, even though the charter states it. And quite honestly, you know, we can't pick the DA's position as the charter states, which is a direct violation of state law. Case was adjudicated back in 2000 that the Lackawanna County tried it, and that replacement of a DA that's potentially going to resign solely rests with the Court of Common Pleas at this point in time. It doesn't rest with county council. So that charter that we have in front of us is not the end all be all. there are provisions in it that are in direct conflict with state law. But, you know, it's going on 10 years and nobody from the Office of Law says, hey, let's look at this proactively. Let's be professional and fix this with county council's cooperation. You know, Mr. Griffith and myself have been trying to change things for the better, and every time the majority shoots it down. It's not because we want power. It's just because we want simply good government, responsible government, government that's going to work for the people of Luzerne County, government that's also going to be running like a well-oiled machine that works in cooperation with management, you know, council, and in our case, the Board of Elections, knowing your role, where your zone is, staying in your lane, you know, and unfortunately, the manager has steamrolled people, you know, and consolidated power. And I'll never forget the words when I first served on county council the first time around, that he told me at one time, you can do a lot in this position, you know, and those words I never forgot. And I know what it's like at this point in time, that you can bully people. You think you have proper service by sending out a county sheriff, and that's not proper legal service, just sending out a meeting notice. I mean, I think most people know that proper service should have been that if we were going to hold a special meeting tonight, the 11 of us as county council would have voted on serving people properly through the prothonotary if this was going to be a hearing for a removal, because you're taking a potential legal action, which can cause other legal consequences. You know, and that's not where I want to be. I don't want to put Luzerne County in a financial position where we're all spending money. We just simply, I mean, we have the power to get it done, clean the charter up, but nobody seems to want to do that. You know, and so, yeah, like I said, you know, at the public meeting, it might have been an unorthodox method, you know, as far as what happened. If you look at all the other charters around the Commonwealth, they're very simplistic when it comes to the Board of Elections. Ours is so restrictive, it basically chokes off good government, and it chokes off, you know, the people of Luzerne County from actually serving on a board that's a very vital part of our democracy.
Okay, thank you. Moving down to the first agenda item. I think we've had discussion already. Moving down to number 2, Ms. Houck, do you want to make a motion there?
Well, actually, I would like to do that, Mr. McGinley, but I also would like to make a few comments too. So can I do that?
Absolutely.
Pardon me?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. So I think we've established state law permits home rule counties to designate the election board. It doesn't tell home rule counties how to designate members of that board, but our charter does. And if you look at the charter, it's no accident that the very first board that's described in the charter is the Board of Elections and Registration. It wasn't an afterthought. It wasn't an accident. It was the very first consideration in continuing the county operations when we started home rule. The charter spells out really clearly how the board is selected. It spells out clearly who sits on the board and who sits on other boards, council members that sit on other boards, namely the Retirement or the Joint Airport Board. They do require council members to sit on them. It specifically lists who's eligible for the election board. And out of the 300,000 plus residents of this county, among other people who are restricted from being on that board, there are 13 people who are specifically not able to sit on that board because we are currently elected county officials. There are a few other people who served on council in recent years who are also not eligible. So it's a small group, but elected county officials, we know who we are. The charter also does not say that those eligibility restrictions are lifted for the chair. It describes who selects the chair, but the eligibility seat for that seat is the same. So the very first consideration for appointment to that chair of the election board should be whether the person is eligible. In this case, the person that the majority of that small quorum appointed is not eligible. And even if he were to leave office today, he would not be eligible for another 4 years. We all know why this is in the charter. The intent was to, as much as possible, keep politics off this board, to keep politics at a distance. And it was also to bring more citizen involvement into the government instead of control by elected officials. There's no question that Mr. Urban is not eligible under the terms of the charter. And if I understand what he said, he even admits that the charter puts him in that ineligible category. He just doesn't think it should be so. Well, that's like saying, I don't want to stop at this red light because I don't think it should be there. So appointing an ineligible person to the chair is the critical issue. But in this case, because that person is a sitting council member, there's a double restriction. One restriction is the charter section 804H of who's not eligible to sit on that board. But the other is the charter section 204 that defines the prohibition for county council members. So even if 804 didn't restrict elected county officials from serving on the election board, section 204 tells every council member that you are not eligible to be appointed to any county board unless the charter says you are. And that's a small number of boards. And the election board is not one of them. None of us as council members is above the law and the charter. And we all knew this when we ran for election. And it is not Mr. Urban's first day at the rodeo. So in the case of declaring a vacancy for the chair of the Board of Elections, it's a simple question. Is Mr. Urban eligible for that appointment? Clearly, the answer is no, he's not. He's not eligible for any appointment as a council member, and he is not eligible specifically for the Board of Elections because it prohibits current and former elected officials. His appointment is not valid, and so the seat needs to be declared still vacant by council. But the other issue, the one that deals with the other two seats held by Joyce Dombrowski-Gebhardt and Keith Gould, that issue is that Mr. Urban did not appoint himself. It had to be done by a majority of the quorum of board members appointed by council. In this case, it was a small quorum, but they still had the ability to appoint a chair. Whether you agree with that process or not, the issue is not that they didn't wait for a replacement for Mr. Ouellette to be appointed, nor is it even that they didn't follow a reasonable or transparently fair process to pick a new chair as they had done every other time. The issue is simply this. They knew that Mr. Urban was prohibited by the charter from serving on the board. They were warned several times during the meeting that it was a violation of the charter to appoint him, and they went ahead and did it anyway. This is serious stuff. This is wrong in a big way. It is not like doing a slow roll through a stop sign wrong. It is driving up the exit ramp to head north in the southbound lane just because you want to, wrong. It is wrong and it needs to be stopped in its tracks. The people of Luzerne County voted 11 years ago to stop doing things based on the whim of an elected official. We implemented home rule to prevent that, and here we are. The charter is the foundation of this government, and violating the charter is a big deal. What we're talking about here today is not a disagreement, as Mr. DeLuca said, over an interpretation of the charter. This is a plain language reading of the charter in every section that applies to this situation. And despite all of those attempts to deflect from the simplicity of this issue, tonight's meeting deals with these specific questions and only these. Is Mr. Urban eligible to be appointed to the Elections Board under the Home Rule Charter? The answer is no. Were Mr. Urban, Ms. Dombrowski-Gebhardt, and Mr. Gould aware that the charter prohibited him from being appointed? The answer is yes. And did they appoint him anyway, and did he accept the appointment? And again, the answer is yes. Those answers to those questions equate to knowingly and willfully violating the charter. Ms. Dombrowski-Gebhardt said she was aware that the charter restricted it, but she did not agree. Mr. Gould was advised that it was a violation of the charter, and in spite of that, he seconded Mr. Urban's nomination and then voted to appoint him. Well, in life, everyone's entitled to an opinion. You could have an opinion that the sun comes up in the west, and even if I took you out at sunrise and showed you that the sun comes up in the east, you could continue to have that opinion, but it doesn't make it right. And sure, Ms. Dombrowski-Gebhardt, Mr. Gould, and Mr. Urban are entitled to have opinions. But when their opinions lead to violations of the charter, as it did in this case, while they're entitled to those opinions, what they are not entitled to is seats on the Luzerne County Board of Elections and Registration. We don't have a need to spend money and time to challenge this in court. Council has the ability and the duty to declare these seats vacant and to move forward to constitute this board with members who value and follow the Home Rule Charter. And so if you want to move on to number 2, I will be happy to make the motion to vacate the seat of chair.
please do that.
I'm so
Second
moved.
Vogue.
We have a second for Ms. Hauk.
Second Vogue.
Mr. Vogt. On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Ms. Edmonds,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Abstain. Deals with me.
Mr. Vogt,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
unanimous.
No, there was one abstention, Ms. Lawrence. Right?
10 with one abstention, correct.
Correct. Thank you. Moving down to number 3, motion to adopt a resolution declaring vacancy in Luzerne County Board of Elections and Registration. That would
So
be-
moved.
The current one would be Ms. Dombrowski Gephardt. Ms. Hauk makes that motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
And that was Ms.
Sheila.
Saban.
Yes.
On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hawes,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Ms. Edmonds,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
No.
Mr. Vogt,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
10 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. Moving down to number 4, motion to adopt a resolution declaring a vacancy in Luzerne County Board of Elections and Registration. Mr. Goldseed. Ms. Hauk.
So moved.
We have a second for Ms. Hauk.
Second, Sheila.
Ms.
Ms.
Saban. On the question? Roll call, please.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Ms. Edmonds,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
No.
Mr. Vogt,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
10 yes, 1 no.
Thank you. We're moving now to public comment on non-agenda items.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, who's this, please?
This is Hillary Palancar. I was listed as guest at the beginning of this meeting.
Okay, would
It
you like,
would only
repeat your last name again, please?
Palancar,
Okay, go
Palencar. It would only be a fool that would, only a fool would disagree with the majority of what was said tonight because it would just be a waste of breath. So I won't do that, even though I do disagree with everything that was said except by Stephen Urban. The problem is that the situation is skewed, and Mr. Rabo said very early in the meeting that there's a double standard, which is so blatantly true as to be obscene. Ms. Curry, on the other hand, said that she had never seen a violation or an outrage so blatant in her life. Well, I have. And that is that what Mr. Urban said about some member of council receiving a salary as a treasurer for a borough, namely Exeter, while serving on a council where state code disallows her presence, has not been discussed. So the point is that while this particular meeting is exigent and is absolutely necessary, and I probably would have voted with the majority, however, the fact is that you are not addressing the systemic corruption in the council as a whole. You're not. Times Leader had Mr. Griffith quoted as asking for the resignations of Mr. Perry, Ms. Radel, and Mr. Bowe on this allegedly ad hoc committee that has been started. So without going into a laundry list of things that need to be dealt with, What I can say is that this is a kangaroo court. Mr. Rabo was 100% correct. Mr. Urban acted out of his conscience. There are some times when in life and in American history where people have done that, namely the American Revolution. And so the point is that to restrict this meeting to Mr. Urban is obscene. It's no different from hanging in chains someone who acted out of conscience when you completely shunt aside so many other issues that need to be addressed that do directly deal with fraud. In Ms. Radel's case, it's monetary. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Okay. Other members of the public? Other members of the public?
Brian Dwyer from Larksville.
Mr. Dwyer, go ahead.
Thank you. Is what the last person who spoke and what Mr. Urban claimed, is that true? Is there a sitting member of council who's in violation of state statute?
Mr. Dwyer, I don't have that information, and I don't know if any is available right now, but please go forward with any other questions you have or any other comment.
Okay, thank you. Well then, pardon?
I think you need to answer that.
No, I don't need to answer that because I don't have the information. Sorry. Mr. Dwyer, you have the podium.
Thank you. Well, then I would put to council that the Office of Law and council should investigate that accusation and ascertain whether it's true, if it has a legal basis, and if it does, the same standards need to be applied. I mean, you guys can't expect to have any credibility in doing what you did. And I'm not saying you're wrong in doing what you did, but you certainly can't let another example of it fly. You literally have to follow that up and take care of it. I would go on with some of the other members of the public have said, and what Mr. Griffith has said. I mean, they've put motions forward to correct things in the charter, which I would say is the duty of everyone on council is to make, where flaws are found in the charter, and we're all only human, I mean, stuff happens. Nobody's nailing you to the cross for it. But when these flaws are found, they need to be corrected. And I think if you're going to move forward in the direction you're moving forward now against the two members of the election board and, Mr. Urban, well, that's great. But that needs to be the standard for everything and for everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Other members of the public?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, it's Lisa Dupersky.
Go ahead, Ms. Dupersky.
I'm just requesting that in light of the clear violation of the charter by Councilman Urban, if council would consider removing him from council.
I don't have that information, Ms. Dupersky. Your comment is duly noted. Other members of the public?
Ronald Knapp.
Mr. Knapp, go ahead.
I am in total agreement with the two previous commenters about the double standard. That is obvious. I don't know of the circumstance with the paid treasurer, but I can tell you this. In the circumstance of Councilman Steve Urban, he's not getting paid anything for the Board of Election appointment. And with that said, I mean, it seems to me if the other one's being monetarily gaining for that position, seems like that is a much worse violation. I mean, the man, Councilman Steve Urban, was taking this on for nothing for the Luzerne County Council or Luzerne County citizens and to make the voting process proper. Even though I still state I would not go outside the charter start deciding things on my own. It's through the legal process, the legislative process. I'm saying that there should not be a double standard, and everybody should be held to the fire. An investigation should be done to make right what is wrong in all instances.
See you later, Matt.
That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Yes, hi, this is Alyssa Fusaro.
Last name, please, again.
Fusaro, F-U-S-A-R-O.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I've been on several of these meetings, and I'll tell you why I started coming on these meetings. And the reason being is because I was concerned about election integrity. You know, not only were boxes of ballots found, and you know, all from Luzerne County. We've had several dead people voting. I mean, you know, I know. You know, I really truthfully think you guys are nitpicking about someone being on a council and on an election board when you're talking about when you should be concerned about election integrity. But I mean, I would assume, since, you know, it doesn't matter to you guys. I mean, because it seems to me that this guy, Steve Urban, knows more about election law than the average person. He should be put in the position where he helps us with that election integrity. But you're nitpicking and you're trying to pull this guy out of a position that he was clearly appointed for and he knows about. And he's trying to make us, you know, actually a better, you know, look better from a county standpoint and actually have some sort of integrity in the election process. And you guys just don't care. And I think that's pretty sad. You're nitpicking and looking at something that doesn't follow state law. Your charter doesn't follow, well, our charter doesn't follow state law, and it should be following state law. It goes against state law. And when it comes to election law, you follow the state law. You don't follow your charter. You have to follow the state law when it comes to election law, don't you? I don't get where you come off removing someone that actually is doing something about election integrity here in Luzerne County. This is ridiculous. I mean, really, guys, really ridiculous. That's all.
Is it really ridiculous?
Thank you. Other
Really
members of the
ridiculous.
public? We have a motion for adjournment.
Mr. McGinley, this is Mark Ramos.
Mr. McGinley, go ahead, Mark.
Mr. Rabo, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, in light of what I said in the beginning of this meeting, state election law does say that the charter, the appointment applies as far as what the charter says. And I agreed with Mr. Griffin when he put up the amendment to have the election, board in terms of composition for some council members in terms of the minority. That was voted down by the council, but I accepted the council's decision. So that being said, election law was followed here and it was in compliance with the charter. Have there are situations where the charter is in conflict with state law. And I would ask the council members to have the charter screened for those certain sections that are in conflict with laws that apply to the state and the state constitution. The Home Rule Study Commission did not send the final draft copy of the charter to DCED or the local government commission to be legally vetted before the voters had to vote on it in the election, so that the home rule charter would be legally, without question, and any of these situations would occur. And as I said in years past, when you have a convoluted charter, you have dysfunctional government. And this instance, it doesn't apply for this instance, but it has applied in the past. and I'm afraid it will apply in the future if nothing is done by this council and in assistance with the Office of Law. So I urge the council, I plead with the council, please have the charter screened and vetted, because then that way situations like this will not occur in the future. I beg of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public?
Mr. Chairman, Jason Carr,
Mr. Carr, go
Salersburg,
ahead.
Pennsylvania. Thank you. Hopefully everyone listening tonight who wants change in Luzerne County government has the opportunity to take advantage of that opportunity with the elections coming soon. You know, at every chance that you have, you must take advantage of looking at the incumbents that serve on council and remove them with your vote. That's the power that you have. And that's the power that you must execute if you want change. Just imagine if Manager Pedri 2 years ago, instead of hiring a friend, did a nationwide search and hired a competent election bureau director. We would not be on this phone call right now. Imagine if Manager Pedri did not circumvent the election board by sending them emails, making decisions for them, sending ordinances to council to vote on for new election machines. We would not be on this phone call right now. There's a bigger picture in all of this, and I appreciate what Joyce did and what Stephen did. They stood up for the people of Luzerne County, because we all know that it's a select group of people that are chosen among the empowered to execute for the few. We know that. And it's up to the citizens to make those changes in May. Thank you so much.
Okay, motion for adjournment.
Mr. McGinley, could we get an answer from the Office of Law regarding the issue that was raised about the person who's in conflict with the state law, please?
Well, we're not going to do that tonight, Mr. Griffith, but we certainly can forward that to the office to see exactly what the issue is.
Okay, and can we discuss, do you want to discuss the County Cares Commission, or do you want to wait till the next meeting?
It's not on the agenda, and we will wait. We'll be on for the next meeting, sir.
Will you be sure to put it on the next voting session, please?
I will have it on the next agendas.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Motion for adjournment.
Mr. McGinley, hold on.
Kendra?
Go ahead. Mr. McGinley, who has the floor?
Well, I don't know who it is, and then you seem to know, Mr. Urban.
I mean, I heard Kendra jump in. I was going to let her go first.
No.
Okay.
No. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Well, I want to speak then, Mr. McGinley. Public comment.
You can speak.
Okay. So I just want to mention too that Title 25 is the election code. And quite honestly, there's a violation provision in there too. And this goes for county management, and make sure that, you know, I want the public to know that they're on notice, that any person who violates any of the provisions of this act shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and on conviction thereof shall be sentenced to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 1 year, or to pay a fine not exceeding $1,000, or both in the discretion of the court. So that basically says if someone violates Title 25, which is the election code, they could be subjected to fines and or jail. And quite honestly, with the bad opinions of the Office of Law that they've given county council over the years, county council then buying the equipment, not going through a proper approval process, it puts everybody on county council, including myself, in a predicament, because you're trying to take the advice of an attorney or many attorneys in that Office of Law. And quite honestly, their advice is not worth the paper that we sometimes use here in the council chambers, because it means nothing. They continue to run roughshod over this county and the people in this county. Quite honestly, one more thing that I have to say is that, yes, the charter has a ton of restrictions in it. Believe it or not, no member or employee of any county authority, board, or commission can serve on the Board of Elections. You can't have or held any elective public office or public employment for 4 years. So that means everybody in county government or in city government, school district government, federal government, authorities, boards, and commissions, no one can serve on the Board of Elections. That's a very, you have everybody that can run for public office, that anybody that knows anything about elections is prevented practically from serving on that board. Like I said, you can't be or have been employed or compensated by any individual or business serving as a contractor to the county or any county authority, board, or commission, serve or have served as a paid consultant for the county or any county authority, board, or commission, or have served as an officer in a political party, meaning that you can't be, one of the political party leaders in the Republican or Democratic county executive like sort of role. It's so restrictive. Like I said, there's age limitations there just by design. You're an adult at 18. You could drink at 21, but you can't serve on the Board of Elections till you're at least 23. I mean, you have people that are going to college that want to learn about government. You look at Luzerne County, and basically we're a county of what not to do.
Okay. You have a motion for adjournment?
Presented.
Mr. Sneed, do we have
Mr.
a
Chair, I'd
second?
like to speak as well. Mr.
Do we have
Chair,
a second?
I'd like to
Harry
speak
wants
before
to
adjournment.
speak.
Do we have a second?
No, Harry wants to speak.
Permission to
Mr.
speak,
Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Who's speaking? Sorry, I can't.
Harry Haas.
Go ahead, Mr. Ross.
Yeah, I would just like to encourage us as a council, the election inquiry met, and I thought we did a lot of really significant, substantial work, and I know we forwarded that on a couple of meetings ago to the public and the council, of course. So, I would like some real clarity. I would hope that we would take that seriously, that there are some things. I think everybody brought up some very good issues tonight regarding the state versus the charter. And I think we really need to pay attention to the code committee, that we would give them the space to really put forth suggestions, because I think there are significant shortcomings between the standardization of the charter provisions with the state. I mean, we found that, and we reported on that. Secondly, so I hope we would do that because we do have a primary election coming up. Secondly, I would like to see on the next agenda as well. That's very alarming to see there very well could be a member serving a non-compatible office, and the public that brought this forward is correct. That should be just as egregious as what we saw tonight. So I'd like to see that on the next agenda. I'd like to make sure I don't have to send an email. So that's my request.
Okay.
Thank you.
We had a motion from Mr. Sneed. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Ms. McDermott. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposition? The abstentions, none heard, motion carries. Council members, we do have an executive session. So when we sign off of this meeting, please go to the next meeting that's scheduled for executive session, please. Thank you.
Thank you.